Good evening. This is Mike Siver with the Mike Siver Show. And tonight I have a special guest, Sherry Niss. And we've been talking back and forth over the months about environmental, raising children, what's happening today with the attitude of children with adults, or responsibility or accountability. And I found a quote by Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass was born a slave, and he died in 1895 when he was 77 years old. He was an author, an editor, and a diplomat before he died. His quote is, "It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men." Now, I'm going to take a liberty a little bit and change the last word on his quote to, "It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken adults." Because today it seems to be more universal with women and men than just back in his day men was the primary focus. At 77 years old, 120 years ago, Frederick Douglass had the wisdom to see that children need to be raised properly to start with, or they end up broken as adults. And I guess my question is, and our conversation was, what has changed in 120 years? We have children today and I visit the jails as a chaplain. I go in the jails almost every week, sometimes twice a week. And it's not uncommon to see father and son in the same jail. That hurts. That's sad. That's really sad. And Sherry, being part of the counseling program that I'm involved with, and we decided to do a show on that tonight. Mm-hmm. So Sherry, can you give me some of your feelings on what we were talking about?
Well, children, when they're born, some people might look at them and say they're going to be mean. They're already mean. But later in life, you find that they do things or say things that just doesn't seem right or common, or doesn't seem like it should be there. And you wonder, was this the parents' doings, or was this maybe some medical issue? What may be going on with these children? It was going on back in the 1800s. It's still going on today.
Yeah, we talk a lot about environmental learning as children, and environmental situational learning, to be more specific. Mm-hmm. Now, if a child grows up in a home with violence, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to become a violent person. But instinctively, and there's a survey out there that says all children know how to act and interact with adults by the time they're 9 or 10 years old. Now, that doesn't mean they don't get more education, because they do. They go to college and they get smarter and they get good jobs. But their social skills are learned on how an adult male talks to an adult male talks to a female, and how they interact with adults by watching their parents. And they've watched their parents interact with other adults for 10 solid years. Now, that's a behavior that's in their head already. And we hear so many women say, after they've been abused, because we deal a lot of that in Van Buren County, mm-hmm. and I'm sure other counties as well, that he was a nice guy until we got married. And within about 3 or 4 months, he started to get a little different. He was funny. He was a nice guy while we were dating. He was a nice guy. He was friendly when we were engaged. But things changed when we got married. Well, this is my view on that, is that if this boy child watched his father abuse his mother, and she stayed in the relationship, which many of them did in the early days, mm-hmm. his understanding is that's what husbands do to wives. Not men do to women. Husbands and fathers do to mothers and wives. So when he's fine until he's growing up, when he actually becomes a husband is when it triggers this memory. I'm a husband now, I can abuse my wife because that's what my dad did. Now, that's not the case for every child, I understand that.
Right.
And I'm not going to go there and say it is. But in your experience with what we've been doing, what do you feel about that?
When they start out young, like you say, they're watching their parents, they're learning from their parents. Their parents, that may have been the way they were raised.
Yeah.
Disrespecting those that are around them, the name calling, the words that's used between the children and the parents.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to be to them a normal occurrence. They may be single parents, so there may not be the other parent involved throughout a good part of their life. Then later in the life, the parents decide, one of the parents, whoever's still, if it's the mother or the father, it does not, at this point, it doesn't matter.
Right.
But they may later in life want to get married, and the person that they're with may have had problems as well. So it's just a vicious circle. I mean, I can go on and give these little speeches and spells, but it just goes on and on. These kids are being raised in an environment where they think it's okay to be disrespectful or just mean, where it just becomes a normal thing for them to do, and it's really hard to communicate with those children. When the other party has grown up to not disrespect.
And we get that a lot when we're talking about respect, which what you just said. Mm-hmm. You hear it so many times that I'm not going to. These are kids talking. I'm not going to respect you till you respect me. Well, I'm an adult. I've lived a lot longer than you. If I don't get any respect at all, it's just for living this long. Mm-hmm. You got to respect. I stayed alive through my life, so that deserves a little bit of respect. Mm-hmm. But kids don't. A lot of kids. I don't want to say kids don't and cover every kid because that's not true. A lot of children don't understand respect is earned. It's not just given. I'm going to respect you until you lose it. No, that's not how it's done. I'll respect you when you earn it. And kids don't believe that. And we talked a little bit on the way up here about that. About 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, this young guy shot these two policemen in Ferguson. Now, he says, and we don't know yet because all this, it's not over with yet, mm-hmm. but he said he didn't mean to shoot the policeman. He was mad at somebody else he had an argument with, and he was trying to shoot him. Now, that frightens the heck out of me, that a young boy would think the way to settle an argument is to shoot the guy he's arguing with. Where did that come from, and how is that a survival mode we're getting to now? I mean, we used to have a joke when I was in the Navy, and it was a joke because we told each other that. You cannot upset me, you cannot make me mad because I'll kill you first. Well, that's a joke, but it's not today. You see it. That's a perfect example of that sentence, that saying gone terribly wrong. And my big concern is this young fellow was already in his late teens or early 20s. What are the younger ones below that thinking now? They're seeing him, and I don't know what the outcome will be of a trial if he goes to jail or whatever happens. Jail seems to be almost like a badge of honor. And I go to the jail sometimes once or twice a week, and we bring the Word of God to the prisoners, the inmates, to try and give them another direction. If nothing else, if what you're doing in your life is not working, why keep doing it? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Try something different. Well, maybe God will be something different. That's fine. But so many of them in there don't want to hear it. They do not want anything different from what they've got. And as you said, if you don't know any different all your life, what are you going to do that's different? You can't. I put a quote on Facebook every now and then. I say, when the abnormal becomes normal, what becomes abnormal? And that's a frightening thought, if you really think about it. I know we can do what's normal all through life, but I mean, you know what I'm saying, the context of that statement is we're getting to the phase now where children can't be controlled. And if they're controlled, then it's child abuse. I mean, I know my mom and dad would have been arrested 100 times a day with a belt. I mean, my mom used to tell me, take off your belt, Michael. And I knew I was going to get it. Today, I wouldn't know what would happen to a mother that spanked her child, because I just got spanked across my butt and the back of my legs with my own belt, and then she gave it back to me. What would happen today with a parent that did that? How do you learn consequences for actions? I guess that's the part that children need to learn, not punishment so much, but consequences for actions. What's happening to you today are consequences for your actions. Is that stuff that you've come across with before?
Children need to learn early that this is what I want you to do. I think we were talking earlier today about if you want a child to do something, just don't make a general statement. You've got to explain a little bit farther what you want them to do. Like I think we were talking about, not only do I want you to make your bed, I want you to put your shoes here, I want you to fold your clothes and put them there, instead of just telling them to go clean their room. Maybe at a young age you need to start and let them know a broader aspect of what you want done. And then in time, all you're going to have to say to them, would you please go clean your room? And it's going to be done correctly.
Yeah.
But if kids don't start at an early age, how to do those things, how to be respectful, what is right and what is wrong, at a later age, it's going to be very difficult to get them to go the right way. But you know, when they start at an early age, disrespecting, and get older, they get around the older generation, you know, that they disrespect. With me, if you disrespect me, it's going to be hard for me to respect you. If you want my respect, give me some respect. So
And people can do that when they choose to.
Right.
And I gave an example a while back on a couple of shows ago about in the counseling practice I do, I get guys in there for substance abuse, anger management, and several other things. And some of them come in pretty rough, and they'll be cussing around, throwing words around, and I tell them, look, I don't want to see that in my practice. You know, in here, if you can't control your language, you know, we gotta talk about that first. Well, that's just who I am. You know, that's just who I gotta be here. I don't want to be here, but I gotta be here. So you're gonna take me for who I am. I said, well, no, I don't have to take you for who you are. And you got to finish this, and you've paid me for it, so I got to see you through it. But we're going to move the next class to the church. We're going to do this same class in the church. Well, I don't want to go to a church. Why don't you want to go to a church? Because then I can't cuss.
Right.
Well, they got control. They know they got control. And that's situational learning. You learn you can behave in one situation, you can't behave like that in another situation. We all learn that, but we're not aware of it. It's subconscious learning. And you were talking about children cleaning the room. Well, I believe in not punishment and reward. I mean, that's okay for dogs and stuff like that, and we used to do that for the kids years ago. But I believe in reward and no reward. And if you said about going in your room, making your bed, put your shoes under your bed, fold your clothes and put them in the dresser, in the drawer, if that's not done, they may expect something if we're cleaning their room. Maybe it's an extra Coke or a cake before dinner or an extra half an hour on the TV. And if they don't do it all, when you have to go back and check, then they don't get to do that. When they do it all, then they can stay up a half an hour later. And that's a two-edged sword. If you start paying children for everything they do, then they're not going to behave unless they get paid. So you've started it's a thin line, and we can't sit here and say, this is how to do it. Because first of all, every family's different. Every person's raised different. But we have to give a general concept of what to do to generate thought in the child, understanding that when I get older and go to work, I will get positive consequences, because consequences are a result of an action. You get paid when you go to work every week. That's a consequence for your action. You don't get paid if you get fired or you quit. That's a result of a consequence. You've quit. So children need to learn that there's consequences, not rewards and punishments. And I think if we as parents understood that more early in the child's life and had that train of thought, the children may grow up to understand, well, I didn't get an A on my test. That's the consequences of I didn't study. You know, or I got an A on my test. That's the consequences because I studied. And if we can get that train of thought going from parents to child, then Mr. Douglass, who get this wonderful quote, we can prove him wrong and help him. I mean, he did that 77 when 120 years ago. I just get amazed every time I read that quote, that he said that, and it's so simple of a quote, but so powerful and in depth to talk about. Now, I know you do more with our groups with substance abuse and anger management. It's sad when you see the same father coming in, and then a year later or 2 years later, the son comes in for the same thing. And like I talk to the police in our town a lot, and they'll say, you know, they deal with families, not just the man.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's the mother and daughter as well. And that's sad. They think this, you know, where is that going to stop? Where is this family going to break the mold? And how do they break the mold? And how do we find them without intruding in their life, knocking on their door and say, you know what, we see this happening throughout your family's history. We want to help you change. They'll probably throw you off the property. So how do we make that aware that we have this opportunity to change our young people's lives? And I think we do it with the schools, try and get them to understand the different structures that are out there. So when they start to date, they start to get serious about their partners, whatever they choose to be, and they'll already look for a partner with the same thought processes, the same skills to a certain extent, that breaks the mold from when my dad did this. Well, we got to break that mold, because I don't want to be in jail. I don't want to spend all my money from the family to pay my court costs, to pay my fines, and to pay for counseling when we need bread on the table and we need a car, we need tires on the car. We can't afford to register the vehicle because there's no money, because we spend it. And most of these people have respectable jobs, but they soon lose those. So how do we get this train of thought across to people? Where do we inject this thought?
We just have to keep trying. Just have to keep trying. Make sure that these people are aware that we have resources, we have people, we have things that can help you in the way of guiding you, not necessarily pulling you away and say, come on, you got to go this way, but giving them a little guidance, understanding, sympathizing with them, just giving them an understanding and a basis. Maybe if we go this route, maybe we can have a better understanding and we can move forward, and maybe our lives will get a little better for us. You just have to keep trying. You know, you can't get up in somebody's face and stay there, because they will. They're going to throw you out.
Yep.
But, you know, there are ways where you can approach it, you know, in such a way that it's not going to totally reject you, I guess, is what I want to say. But, you know, because there's a lot of things out there, and a lot of people that you can talk to, a lot of places that you can go to, in the schools, they do have counselings and that sort of thing in the school. But those children need to get to a point, and even the adults, they need to get to the point where maybe something is not right here. Maybe I need to talk to somebody. Even if it's just bringing it to somebody's attention. At least the people around them can be observing and watching a little better. But these, when they start so young, it's very difficult to get any control.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate when they get into adulthood that they're pretty messed up by then, and they really need some extra attention.
And that gets what you were talking just now about people seeking help. A lot of people, first of all, can't afford extra help, so they got to go pay for a counselor. That's why I like, with the group you're with, Blue Seahorse, it's a nonprofit organization, and I know you offer really reduced rates to a lot of our clients, and to a point we're trying to get some grants and money that we can offer free services. But even if you offer free services to them to come in, does that mean if I walk in that door as an adult that I'm admitting failure? That I need help, I'm not good at being a mom?
I would hope not.
But they think like that.
Right, they do.
How do you get over that? And one thing I like about your name, Blue Seahorse, is that it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean family counseling service or some other counseling service or support service. It just says Blue Seahorse. And people that go in there only go in there for a special reason, but people drive by all day long, nobody knows what it is. And that's good, I think. I think that's really good, because people that need to know. The ones that don't, it doesn't matter. It's just a Blue Seahorse. What in the heck's Blue Seahorse? Well, come in and find out. But we have to look, like you say, and I think we need to get into the schools at some point and maybe do a little group or a class with life skills on becoming an adult. They're going to become an adult fast enough. It's time, I think, they learn, and they're learning all the academic stuff they need to know, and that's fine. But there's basic life skills that they struggle with. It's not math and sciences, because they're a lot smarter today than I ever was, and that's for sure. But life skills and how to survive with conflict resolution. How do you resolve a conflict without shooting somebody, as this boy did in Ferguson? How do you resolve a conflict without getting a gun out and shooting somebody? There's lots of ways, but they seem to have only one way. And then the games and all the stuff that they do on TV minimize death and minimize torture and terror, because these games are all blow this up and shoot that person and kill as many people as you can. There's no value to life in those games. Does that transfer into the real person? Yes, I think it does, especially at young ages. I think it does transfer into real people. And I think that's also a view and a value system that the young people have today, is they don't value life. They really don't, and they don't understand why they don't value life. I mean, if you're going to take a gun out and shoot somebody because you're mad at them, something and some people have gone horribly wrong to have that attitude. And that's got to be frightening, no matter who you are or where you're from. We really have to be so careful growing up, getting our kids today. So we're going to keep going, and keep, like you said, we've got to keep going. We've got to keep trying. That's why we do these shows over and over and over. And sometimes I feel like we're beating a dead horse, but you've got to keep going. We get calls. We get people that write. They notify us. And it has reached a few people. And people have come out and said, can you give us some direction? Can you give us this a little bit here? I'm having this issue with my son or my daughter. How do I communicate? Communication the most powerful tool in the world. Do we use it? No, not when you do like I say because I'm the dad. At some point that has to be. You have to understand that. The policeman says, put his hands up and says, stop. You better stop just because he's a policeman. And there's a reason he's telling you to stop.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to know the reason. You just have to know he's a policeman and he's saying stop. If you want to know the reason, ask him. But you better stop if he says stop. The same with parents. Parents say to do things. You have to learn to do them, but if you want to know the reason why they're saying do things, you need to ask them. Or in the early days, the parents need to learn to communicate. This is what you have to do, and this is the reason why. And we talked about that when you said, we go clean the room. That's just an open-ended statement.
Mm-hmm.
What's clean to that child is not going to be clean to you. But you didn't say clean it to my standard. You just said clean the room.
Right, right.
So he's going to clean the room, or her is going to clean their room to their standard. And you have to accept that. You can't walk in after saying, go clean your room. They come out and say, my room's clean. You go back in and you can't see anything they've done, but they've moved something somewhere. Yeah. So the room is clean to them, and then you holler at them? You get mad at them? How confusing must that be? Like you said, put your shoes under the bed, make your bed, and put the clothes in the dresser. 3 direct things to clean your room. If they get that done, don't worry about the rest of it. That comes with time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then, as you said, when they start to learn, this is all the steps it takes to clean your room. Now when I say go clean the room, it means all those steps. And that's a lot of time for parents to take. And I know with working families today, sometimes they both come home tired
Mm-hmm.
and exhausted. And kids have a lot of energy. And we know that. I don't know how my mom did it. 7 kids, almost by herself most of our lives. I have no idea how she did it. She did it. Mm-hmm. And I'm the only one that was been in jail a bunch of times. I'm the only one that's been in trouble. The rest of them have all done really well in their lives. How does she do that? I wish she was here to tell us. She's not with us any longer. But there are so many women that have raised children on their own, and plenty of them. How do you do that?
I raised both of my daughters pretty much on my own. I mean, you know, I had my mother there to help and the rest of my family, but I did it on my own, and it was very difficult sometimes. And I cannot, as a single mother, I can't say that I did everything right, but I have, you know, both of my daughters today seem to have a right direction and seem to be, you know, doing all right. You know, they're working, they're out on their own, but I worked with them at a very early age, you know, or at least I tried, or I attempted to work with them. I know every parent gets bitter with their children, you know, yells at their children, right. But trying to lead them in the right direction, making sure they know what is expected of you, they'll in return respect you back.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we've only got about 30 seconds left of our show. And what I'd like to do, if anybody is watching this show and wants to be on the show, please call the number on the show. Mm-hmm. Contact us. If you've got something you want to add or put into the show, please feel free to do that. We're going to be back next week with another show talking about a similar topic. We look forward to seeing everybody then. And with that, we're going to say good night, everyone.
Good night.